So here we are at the end of July 2024, and to the absolute surprise of nobody, the Stonehenge Tunnel has now been cancelled. I'm not going to go over the proposals in detail here because so many other YouTubers have covered those proposals and probably done it a lot more eloquently than I would have. I'll put some links into the description so you can find out more about that and make up your own mind. This is primarily an opinion piece. Quite honestly, I'm glad it's been cancelled. It's one of those schemes that is never going to be done properly with the current trend in national highways for doing things absolutely horribly and as cheaply as possible. The effect it would have had on what is one of the most globally significant landscapes we have, it doesn't bear thinking about. Now, some of you may remember what happened back in the 90s when the M3 was forced through Twyford Down and the effect that had on the road construction industry. It changed everything. Up until that point, new roads were just pretty much forced through. If you didn't like the road, tough, it was going to happen. But the protests that took place at Twyford Down changed that. Environmental impact studies became an important consideration. Archaeological concerns became an important consideration. It was no longer acceptable to just say that, metal boxes need to travel somewhere at 70 miles per hour. There had to be more than a simple economic demand for the road. It had to also have a social benefit. And this is the problem with the Stonehenge scheme. It doesn't really provide the latter there. It helps people get to the southwest quicker. Yes, the southwest is an economically deprived region. However, the sort of traffic that's using the A303 is primarily holidaymakers and locals to the Salisbury area avoiding traffic jams in Salisbury itself, which is a problem that can only be resolved with better active travel, better public transport and a refocusing away from car dependency. This is the fundamental problem that nobody understands. If you have car dependency, you have cars, and if you have cars, you have congestion, and you will never ever keep up with that problem. You will always be fighting the next traffic jam. If you fix Stonehenge, you move the traffic jam to another section of the A303. It's as simple as that. The whole network in this country is just a series of bottlenecks that have been shifted to a more politically acceptable location. The issue with Stonehenge is it's not a politically acceptable location to have traffic. It's also not a politically acceptable location to have a big massive road scheme, hence why a tunnel was developed. The problem is with the tunnel is it still impinges on the World Heritage Site, and this has caused a lot of upset amongst people who are rightly very sensitive about the state of this area. It's religiously significant, it's culturally significant, and it's globally significant. And to just slam a tunnel through it so people can get to Cornwall a few minutes quicker isn't really going to cut the mustard. Now, there's going to be lots of people in the comments, I imagine, going about, it's not just about people travelling to Cornwall quicker, but as I've said, the local traffic issues around Salisbury and Larkhall and Porton Down and all the other areas that are big employers, public transport, active travel, other options that remove car dependency and create transport choice are the only way forward. And getting this through to people is difficult. They just seem to still be stuck in this mentality that if you build more roads, one more lane will fix it, and that is not always the case. There are some examples where fixing a road bottleneck will help. One example close to Stonehenge but not at Stonehenge would be to resolve the A417, which goes down the hill at Birdlip. That is a problem spot because the dual carriageway has been completed up until one final bit that now needs finishing. That also will have problems though when finished. Yes, you've eliminated the bottleneck at Birdlip Hill and the Air Balloon roundabout, but you will then have problems where it meets the M4 because that's a roundabout, and you'll have problems where it meets the M5 because that's a limited access interchange and it doesn't provide all movements in towards Gloucester. We don't view our transport network as a holistic enterprise. We view it simply as little bitty things that need to be fixed when money allows. There is no overarching strategy. We've just seen what happens with High Speed 2 where this is the case. We're probably going to cancel the link into Euston Station as well, which is a fundamentally backwards thing to do, but we've been left with this because, again, bad planning and not doing things as a bigger picture and just trying to deal purely with the confines of a red line boundary. Yes, you've got to draw red line boundaries somewhere because there isn't an infinite pot of money, but schemes need to be designed either with a continuation in mind or as an overall strategy. Let's just look, for example, now at the A465 in Wales. It's been said for you know, it's been roadworks for 20 odd years now, because the overarching plan was that the entire length from Swansea to Abergavenny would become a dual carriageway. The plan was there, it's been contracted into sections, and those sections have been built as and when money has permitted, because there has been a plan. This has not been applied to the A303. The A303's just had the easy bits done, where money's been easy to throw at it, and now you're left with the tricky bits. And because they're tricky and expensive and politically difficult, they won't get done. It's just madness. It's such an indictment of especially English planning, but it's not unique to England. It happens across the whole UK. The A465 is very much an exception in this situation. That is a rare example of a road having a strategy applied to it. I'm not an absolutist when it comes to these things. I do believe that in the right circumstances, road construction can be a beneficial outcome. I mean, there are examples that is the case where the road might be the correct answer. Transport is not a zero-sum game. You cannot say one answer is correct. This is why there's an urban-rural divide. In a lot of rural areas, driving may be the better answer. But equally, large urban areas do not lend themselves to traffic. Equally, rural areas that are predominantly reliant on tourists do not lend themselves to traffic. Anyone who's been to Cornwall knows how difficult it is to get around. There's a reason I don't go to the Lake District as well, for example. I don't go there because it's a pain in the backside to drive to, it's a pain in the backside to take a train to, and when you get there it's just crowded and congested because there's so much traffic. It's not an inviting place. I just despair at this constant belief that unless cars are at the heart of the equation, it's not right. We need to do better. Transport needs to do better. This country deserves better. People who travel deserve better. And whilst the cancellation of this scheme is primarily to save money, it might hopefully result in a reframing of transport policy. I'm not confident that will be the case, and I doubt it will, but one can hope. And I hope that the new government are going to understand that you need to start planning ahead, and you cannot run a transport network on an electoral cycle. You need 20, 30, 40, even 50 years worth of forward planning. It needs to be agreed, it needs to be signed up to, and it needs to be stuck to. If the facts change the plan, but have the plan to begin with. Don't just have a very, well, we're going to invest in these easy bits and we're going to use nebulous economic theory to justify doing nothing elsewhere, or coming around with mental gymnastics, bending over backwards, talking about things like geometry being a main delay constraint factor, or nonsense like that. That's all just babble. It's babble. What is the overriding social need for a scheme? Who does it benefit? Why does it benefit them? Ultimately, people before cars. If the best answer is no road because that benefits the people in that area, then you don't build the road. Equally, if the new road is the answer because it benefits people, for example, taking traffic out of Winterbourne Stoke is a very valid aim. That is important. People in Winterbourne Stoke have 25,000 vehicles a day rushing through the village. Do we need to destroy a World Heritage Site to fix that problem? No, we don't. We can bypass that village and address the Stonehenge problem at a later date. Whew. That was a bit of a rant, wasn't it? Sorry about that, guys, but I needed to get that off my chest. I will return to more regular content in due course. I'll catch you soon. Bye, everyone.